Hi, so I'll be going over my high school health science lesson plan on complementary and alternative medicine. So here, right off the bat, we have the essential literacy strategy focus, which basically is the central focus of the unit. It's what students will be working towards ultimately, and it's that students will be able to explain the safety and effectiveness of complementary and alternative medicine, and I'll be calling that CAM from now on just to make it easier. So the related skills have to do with this particular lesson. So what will students do in order to work towards this central focus? And in this lesson, students will be able to compare CAM and explain the 5 categories of CAM. And so the content focus is complementary medicine and alternative medicine. So here we have the standards. They're from the NGSS. For this lesson, I had a hard time finding a standard to fit in, just because this is a health science class, and the NGSS doesn't really have anything to do with alternative medicine, complementary medicine. There's nothing that really fits it. But I did my best, and I found a standard about the hierarchical organization of interacting systems that provide special functions within multicellular organisms, which is the case for humans, and a lot of the science and engineering practices, the DCIs or the CCCs, that fit in with this particular lesson. So here we have the instructional learning objectives. Here students will be able to explain and distinguish among the 5 categories of CAM, and this will be assessed by the jigsaw activity that they'll be doing, and then they'll also be able to compare complementary and alternative medicines, and this is we use a formative assessment to measure this. They'll be doing a pair share on their experiences very early on in the lesson, and then they'll also be able to participate in a class discussion. Both of these things are formative and they're informal. So here we have the language functions, which are that students will identify and explain each of the 5 categories, and that they will compare and contrast complementary and alternative medicine. Here we have the vocabulary and the discourse, which is that students will be actively listening during group discussions. In the jigsaw activity, they'll also be actively listening during the pair shares. They'll be able to fill out a worksheet detailing their research about CAM and use academic language in this lesson, and that's really important. We have the resources and materials, which are just the Chromebooks and the handout, and the student prior knowledge. So prior to this lesson, students should be familiar with the concept of conventional medicine, either from this class and previous lessons, since this is health science, or from personal experience in their daily lives with doctors and medicine. Most of us have had some experience with conventional medicine. So during the transition, the teacher briefly kind of talks about what students have learned during the previous activity and uses it to introduce this one. Since this is kind of not a real lesson, I don't really know what lesson could come before this, but the teacher can tie it into what the class has already talked about. They can begin by showing the students an image of a person undergoing acupuncture, and this is the hook. It gets the students' attention. And the teacher asks the students, is this a conventional method of medicine? Kind of find out what they already know about CAM. So for this particular lesson, the 3 sections are kind of mixed in together. The teacher starts it off with a little bit of guided, asks the students to kind of share out what they think CAM means based on their own definitions of the words complementary and alternative. After that, after finding out what students already know, the teacher uses a PowerPoint presentation to teach students about CAM. It also talks a little bit about the 5 different types or 5 different categories of CAM. After that, we have right here, the teacher then asks students if they have had any experiences after knowing this with CAM in their lives, such as at home. Students turn to their table partner and they do a little pair share and they share out loud. After that, teacher introduces the jigsaw activity that students will be working on and passes out the handout. Here we have a few of the differentiation scaffolds. Teacher uses visuals in the PowerPoint slides for visual learners as well as English learners, and uses gesticulation to emphasize ideas, and models the jigsaw activity for students who may need to see how it works. So then here we have the independent practice. Students are assigned into one of the 5 expert groups corresponding to the 5 categories. They work individually to fill out the CAM worksheet using their Chromebooks to do research. Here, the differentiation is that teacher walks around the class, offers assistance, a list of websites for students to use. After the independent practice, students go back to guided, and they are done with their research. They meet up with their expert groups to check for information, fill in any missing gaps, present their information together, kind of come up with a short presentation, and then they go into their sharing groups. They're assigned to a different sharing group, and then each person goes around and talks about what they learned about each category. And so here we have quite a few scaffolds. There's some wait time for English learners and students with IEPs to kind of think about their answers during discussions and pair shares. Teacher provides sentence frames for students who have trouble getting started and how to present their information, kind of get them thinking with that academic language, allowing students to practice with their expert groups before presenting in their sharing groups, and then using, obviously, again, the additional wait time, which the pair share also gives students. And then to close off the activity, the teacher brings the class back together for class discussion. The teacher asks, after what they've learned today about CAM, whether they would be open to alternative or complementary medicine and why, or would they rather just stick to the conventional medicine. Teacher gives students a few minutes to think about their answers and then kind of share out, and then brings the conversation to a close and talks about what students will be learning about in the next lesson and kind of connects it to that. So yes.